I'm Penny Wolfgang, and welcome to The Big Picture. Earlier this week, political unrest reached historic proportions when rioters swarmed the Capitol. As a nation, we witnessed the images of a violent protest. Congress went into lockdown as thousands of people, many Trump loyalists, reacted to the Electoral College returns that would certify Joe Biden as president-elect. As everyone called for peace, this is the video of how President Trump responded.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace.
Joining us with reaction to this grim moment in history and other historic political news is political analyst Vic Martucci from Mazziello, Martucci and Associates. So, Vic, how much responsibility does the president bear for what happened?
Well, the president bears a lot of responsibility for what happened. The refusal over the several weeks after the election, particularly after the Electoral College voted to make Joe Biden the president of the United States, has only encouraged dissent and dissatisfaction among his supporters. And let's be clear, most Trump supporters did not and are not behaving in the way that this group in Washington, D.C. did. However, the president knows that there is a radical element of support out there for him, and that his constant messaging of this election was stolen, this election is illegitimate, he had to know that it was going to incite this kind of unrest. And so, unfortunately, we saw what we saw this week at the Capitol, and it's historic and something that is going to have a lasting impression on our nation.
Was there a time when we showed what he did say finally, but should he have spoken out and made a speech and condemned all of this instead of doing the Twitters and the social media and whatever he usually does?
Yes. The presidency is a bully pulpit like no other in the world. And when the president speaks, people listen. And for the most part, people respect what the president has to say. And so he clearly had an opportunity even before the unrest happened. Not that he could have predicted it, not that he purposely incited it, but he spoke to the protesters in front of the White House before Congress convened to certify the Electoral College results. And he could have made a very simple statement at that time that peaceful protest is certainly appropriate. But don't use the incendiary language like we're never going to give up. We're never going to stop fighting because this election was stolen from us. Knowing how volatile the body politic is in our country today, not understanding or realizing that those words would incite some kind of violence is really being tone deaf.
Right. Words matter, words matter, words matter. Now, Vice President Pence Mitch McConnell, other top and key Republicans broke with the president. It seems like Trump put them into a corner, while some others picked up, on his side, started saying that the election was stolen. Now, where does the Republican Party stand now? What's going to happen with the Republican Party, Vic?
Well, that's a good question, because I think from the leadership's perspective, the leadership of the Republican Party has acknowledged that the election is over, that they acknowledged it weeks ago, and so it is time to move on. But there's a hardcore group of Trump supporters that take their cue from the president and his family. That absolutely refuse to believe that. The other part of this is that the president has raised over $300 million since the end of the election, and he raised that money in the effort, he said, to fight the court battles necessary to overturn what he said was a corrupt and stolen election. Well, he hasn't spent very much of that money, and so what's he going to do with it? If some of the speeches that he has given recently, particularly last Monday night in Georgia before the Senate special elections there, he's probably going to use that money to seek revenge on Republicans that did not support his cause, his quest to overturn the results of the election. So 74 million people voted for this president on election day. And leading up to election day, that's a record vote. So, that $300 million makes him a player, whether the leadership of the Republican Party likes it or not.
Right. People have forgotten that that it was not a landslide of victory. And what's going to happen? How are they going to bring those people back into the party who don't trust the process, or back into politics whatsoever, who now don't trust the process and are, concerned about how things played out? How are they going to get these people together?
I don't know the answer to that. It's not going to be easy, that's for sure. And certainly President-elect Biden, when he is sworn in as president, is going to have a challenge on his hands to bring the nation together as Americans, not just as Republicans and Democrats, but as Americans. Judge, we've talked about this in the past. The political divisiveness in this country seemingly is ramped up more and more every election cycle. And just when we think it can't get any worse, it gets worse. And at some point, leaders in both parties have to come together and try and solve this problem and change the politics in our country, because it's tearing us apart from the inside. And it's not a good thing.
How significant do you think it was that Congress went back to finish the job of counting the electoral votes? Was it significant just as a political statement, or as a historic statement, or in any way?
Well, I think it was significant in two ways. One is the symbolic nature of going back and saying no amount of civil unrest is going to prevent our democratic republic from exercising a peaceful transition of power. The symbolism of that is very powerful and very important. And then secondly, of course, is the constitutional duty of Congress to certify the results of the election, and they fulfilled their constitutional duty in certifying the results.
What about the terrible effect of the rioting, of not only the seeing it and the visual seeing it, but the actual happening of the lack of security, that law enforcement would let all of this happen in the capital of our country? What about the security aspect? Do you think that they should have been more prepared?
I do. And that's just an uninformed opinion based on watching what unfolded. I don't know, the insides of what the security protocols are. the type of information that they're privy to, what would be appropriate given what the Capitol Police knew prior to the Congress gaveling into session to certify the results. So I'm hesitant to blame Capitol Police without knowing the process that they went through. But just from being an outsider watching it, I had to ask myself, what were you thinking? How could you not be prepared for something like this?
I think it was, what were you not thinking? You know, how could you not be prepared? Exactly. And
Right.
what do you think,
Right.
how do you think this portends, or what do you think is going to happen with the inauguration? Do you think this is they'll be, up for it and more security, and they'll be more prepared?
Oh, I would think no question. And by the way, I mean, the security at an inauguration is incredible anyway, because you have the outgoing president of the United States, although that's not going to happen this time, but you have the outgoing president of the United States and the incoming president of the United States in a public venue. And so you can imagine the enormous security risk involved with that type of a ceremony. So I've got to believe that the preparation for the inauguration is light years different than what the Capitol Police would have, even if they had assumed there was going to be unrest, would have prepared for.
Now, what do you think about the reaction of our local leaders to what happened yesterday, to the Electoral College, to what we're calling the rioting? What about their reaction?
Well, I mean, look, everybody's entitled to their opinion and to state their opinion and their views on what happened at the Capitol. So I'm not necessarily going to question what was said. I would say this is that I would hope that elected officials on both sides would start to take the temperature down. Because any type of incendiary language is only going to make things worse. I think this is one of those times when Republicans and Democrats should come together and speak in one voice, condemn the actions of what occurred at the Capitol. I don't think any reasonable American, whether an elected official or a private citizen, can condone what happened at the Capitol. Condemn it in the strongest possible terms, and vow to make sure that it never happens again.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Vic Martucci, so please stay with us. We'll be right back.